Irish measure. A plantation measure was a system of units of land measurement used in Ireland from the 16th century plantations until the 19th century, with residual use into the 20th century. The units were based on English measure, but used a linear perch measuring 7 yards as opposed to the English rod of 5.5 yards. Thus, linear units such as the furlong and mile, which were defined in terms of perches, were longer by a factor of 1411 in Irish measure, while areas such as the rood or acre were larger by 196 to 121. After the Act of Union 1800, Ireland was part of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, whose Parliament passed the Weights and Measures Act 1824, which established English measure in Ireland as Imperial measure or statute measure. Imperial measure soon replaced Irish measure in the use of the Dublin Castle administration, but Irish measure persisted in local government, and longer still in private use. A third system, Scotch measure or Cunningham measure, was also used in Ulster Scots areas. Irish mile. The Irish mile, as latterly defined, measured exactly 8 Irish furlongs, 320 Irish perches, or 2,240 yards, approximately 1.27 statute miles at 2.048 kilometers. During the Elizabethan era, 4 Irish miles were generally equated to 5 English ones, although whether this meant the Old English mile or the shortest statute mile is unclear. The 21-foot perch was in use by the time of William Petty. However, a 1715 statute of the Parliament of Ireland defines the fare for ferries in terms of common Irish miles, at 1 English mile and a half, at 12 furlongs at least to each mile. Under British rule, the Irish mile was not always used. From 1774 until the 1820s, the grand juries of 25 Irish counties commissioned maps at scales of 1 or 2 inches per Irish mile, but the county mayor maps were surveyed and drawn by William Bald in English miles and just rescaled to Irish miles for printing. The Ordnance Survey of Ireland, from its establishment in 1824, used English miles. Thomas Telford's Howth Dublin Post Office extension of the London Holyhead Turnpike had its mileposts in English miles. Irish measure was formally abolished by the 1824 Weights and Measures Act, but the Irish Post Office continued to use the measure until 1856. A late use in statute was the Parliamentary Boundaries Act, 1832, which defined the radius of the parliamentary borough of Sligo as 1 mile. Irish ad measurement from the market cross, the same as the boundary established for local taxation purposes in 1803. Prior to the publication of standardized traffic regulations by the Irish Free State in 1926, signage varied from county to county, prompting complaints from travellers such as Alfred Austin. In 1902, the Royal Book of Ireland explained that counties Dublin, Waterford, Cork, Antrim, Down, and Armagh use English, but Donegal Irish miles. The other counties either have both or only 1 or 2 roads have Irish. The 1909 Thorough Guide said the railway companies adopt English miles. The car proprietors are apt to be elastic in the choice. The counties of Dublin, Waterford, Cork, Antrim, and Armagh use English milestones. Donegal uses Irish only, and the other counties either have both or a mixture. Metal milestones, however, show English, and stone ones Irish miles. The Oxford English Dictionary's 1906 definition of mile described the Irish mile as still in rustic use. The Irish Free State standardized its roads using English statute miles, leading to some nationalist complaints. In 1937, a man being prosecuted for driving outside the 15 15-mile limit of his license offered the unsuccessful defense that, since Ireland was independent, the limit should be reckoned by Irish miles, just as no one would ever think of selling land other than as Irish acres. In 1965, two deputies proposed an amendment to the Road Transport Act to replace the English statute miles with Irish ones. It was rejected. Such complaints, and the traditional distance itself, are now considered obsolete following Irish metrication from the 1970s. However, an Irish mile is still used colloquially to express a vague but long distance akin to a country mile. Place names: 2 mile Borris, County Tipperary is 2 Irish miles from Leamore, site of a medieval monastery. 3 mile House, County Monaghan is 3 Irish miles from Monaghan Town. 5 mile Town, County Tyrone is 5 Irish miles equidistant from Clogher, Brookborough and Tempo. 6 mile Bridge, County Clare is 6 Irish miles from Thomond Gate, Limerick. 6 mile Cross, County Tyrone is 6 Irish miles from Omagh. The name of 6 mile Water, County Antrim is said to derive from the crossing point 6 Irish miles from Antrim town on the road to Carrickfergus. Irish acre. The Irish acre or plantation acre measured 1 Irish chain by 1 Irish furlong, or 4 Irish perches by 40, or 7,840 square yards. Approximately 0.66 hectares or 1.62 statute acres. The Lancashire acre around the Solway Firth and the Churchland acre in Yorkshire were the same size, which Frederick Seebohm in 1914 connected to the area of Gwent in Wales. A 1653 survey of lands of the Countess of Ormond in County Kilkenny used statute acres, whereas the 1654-5 civil survey and 1655-6 Dan survey used plantation acres. The Irish acre remained common in Irish newspaper advertisements for farmland and other property until the middle of the 20th century. The Ordnance Survey of Ireland from its 1824 foundation used statute acres in its maps, which were used in turn for Griffith's valuation and the census. In older Gaelic usage, a townland was notionally 60 or 120 acres, but the size varied by the quality of the land. This unevenness was not sufficiently understood by English and Scottish planters, which caused disputes when confiscated land was divided and assigned. In Anglo-Norman Ireland, as in England of the time, acre sometimes meant any individual plot of land. As a standard measure, it was probably about 2.5 statute acres near Dublin, perhaps differing elsewhere. Of 11 townlands in Ireland named 40 acres in 1901, 6 had areas between 60 and 78 statute acres. The smallest was 46 acres and the largest 185. The civil parish of Caen, County Wexford has townlands named 3 acres, 9 acres, and 19 acres, with respective areas of 12, 21, and 30 statute acres.